Mom struck my throat for purchasing cancer medication for my son instead of handing money to my sister. I thought I knew what true family sacrifice looked like until the day my own mother hit me across the face, not in anger, but in cold, calculating disgust, all because I chose to save my son's life. Can you believe that? Pause, slightly deeper, more intense tone. The clinic always smelled the same, sterile bleach and the sickeningly sweet scent of children's medicine. Clean, clinical, and so wrong. Because the tiny vial I clutched in my palm contained a liquid that cost more than my annual salary, the kind of money that would make grown men choke. My son, Mason, his hand cold and small in mine, was watching the nurse tape the bandage over his port. He was only 5, but brave in that way only little kids can be. He'd flash me small, tired smiles, asking about dinosaurs between drips of the life-saving medicine. For even a chance at more time that smelled of homework and playgrounds instead of hospital lights, I had sold everything I could. A drawer full of memories. I'd taken a second job, swallowed my pride to ask favors. I'd scraped and saved and clawed my way to buying that medicine. I had the receipt for that medicine folded tight in my pocket, warm against my skin. Proof. Proof that I had done the impossible. I always thought my parents would just exist in the background of my life, you know? Distant, occasionally present, the kind who'd show up for a graduation in a suit and leave early. That was my expectation. But the universe, it doesn't always stick to the script. My mother and sister were there, waiting in the hospital corridor, looking like a pair of vultures wearing designer lipstick. My mom's jacket was polished, too new, like a loud announcement. And my sister? She clutched her handbag, and it clicked with every step, a cold, hard rhythm counting out my worth. They were smiling at the receptionist, as if they were about to walk onto a stage and claim victory. I should have seen it then, what they were truly there for. But all I could focus on was Mason, this small, brave child who needed me, and the medicine I'd just bought him. Everything else was a blur. "Hi," my mother chirped, her voice sickeningly bright, like syrup covering a rusty nail. "We're just here to support Dean's next big meeting."
Dean.
She said his name like he was their latest investment, not my brother. I started to lean down to hug Mason, but her hand clamped onto my arm. Not soft. A vice. "Abby, can we talk?" she asked, her tone as casual as asking for a cup of sugar. I remember saying, "Careful. Mason just had his port cleaned. We can talk afterwards, when the nurse is done." But she didn't let me finish. "We need a family deposit," she cut in, her voice sharp. "Dean's contract came through this week. The designers already paid a deposit on wardrobe. We're stretched. You know how it is." She looked past me, scanning for anyone who might overhear. The word "stretched" hung in the air, a public announcement of their fabricated struggles. My throat tightened. I knew what stretched meant in their world. It meant my needs were just numbers in their twisted ledger, and those numbers always bent toward whoever shined brighter in their photos. I could practically smell their rehearsal, how they'd practiced their generosity for the cameras, then calculated every single expense behind closed doors. Without thinking, I slid the receipt from my pocket. I wanted them to see it, to see the truth of what I had done with my rent money, my overtime pay, the tiny emergency fund I kept hidden in a biscuit tin. I wanted them to know, truly know, that I had chosen Mason over a million things they called opportunities. My mother's eyes skimmed the paper, a flicker of annoyance, like it was an unsolicited flyer. Her smile thinned into a razor line. Then, she let her clutch fall open, and the whole scene shifted. Her posture morphed from patronizing to prosecuting. "You spent our money," she hissed, low and dangerous, as if reading a grocery list of my transgressions. "You took funds that should have been for family investment. Dean needed a new sample for tomorrow. He can't go without it." She pushed the receipt back at me. "That was my money," I insisted, the words anchoring themselves as truth. "I worked for that. Mason needed this treatment." My sister settled into a chair, like an actress hitting her mark. "Mom's right," she purred, venom wrapped in sugar. "Comfort is how you survive in our world. You don't understand the optics. If Dean looks perfect on stage, doors open. People invest. We thought you agreed to the plan. Plan? I echoed, my voice incredulous. What plan? The plan where one child eats and the other pays. They had always used that word, plan, to describe things that never, ever involved me. Tuition for one sister, braces for another, endless applause for their golden child. It wasn't strategy, it was structural cruelty, cleverly disguised. My mother took another step closer, her palm flat, almost as if she was about to bestow a crown. You know how families operate, she stated, cold and clear. We keep things proportional. You took from the pot. You should have asked. My chest constricted. I did ask, I whispered. I asked my neighbor to watch Mason for an extra shift. I sold things. You did what? Her voice morphed, sharpening into a blade. You sold things? You sold family assets? You never. She stopped, her eyes narrowing, suddenly sharp like a knife about to cut into soft meat. I started to tell her about the small things I'd sold, the payday loans I'd refused, the late shifts at the cafe. The truth, I thought, would steady me. Mason's tiny fingers twined with mine. He looked up at me, a map he trusted. And in that trust, her words couldn't touch me anymore. Then she hit me. It wasn't dramatic, not like in movies. It was simple, sudden. Her backhand cracked across my throat with a flat, humiliating thud. The air left my lungs like something practical, essential. My hand flew to my neck because my voice had just vanished inside me. Mason screamed. Pure, immediate terror. The room dissolved into a sound so sharp, it felt like glass shattering. My mom's face showed no surprise. No fevered regret. She had trained her hands, I realized, to move like a judge's gavel when she wanted to make a point. Her comfort comes first, she said, the words glassy, proud. Always. People turned. The nurse's station erupted in a chorus of frantic whispers. My mother's palm still hovered, calm, calculated. And my sister's phone? It blinked. She was filming. A casual fury, documenting proof that she was right. I swallowed. My mouth filled with copper, fear, blood, humiliation. My mind screamed to call for help, to pull out my phone, to scream back. But I did none of those things. Moment-to-moment decisions are heavy, messy, and I had a 5-year-old who needed a mom who could move. I picked Mason up. He was my life, right there, one small, solid thing. He clung to my neck, his little heart beating against my chin like a metronome for what truly mattered. I didn't look at my mother. Not once. I walked out with a stinging taste of that slap in my throat, the sound of my sister's shoes clicking against the floor, like a judge walking away from a closed case. We drove in a silence that was anything but comfortable. Mason dozed against me, his head heavy, soft as a saucer. From the car, I called the pharmacist to confirm the next delivery. I thought practical things would steady me. Fear was a low thrum at the back of my skull, but I had a list. Appointments to keep. Calls to make. And a son sleeping, so small, so vulnerable. That night, at the motel, I lay awake, an ice pack pressed to my throbbing throat. All those years, the pattern of little cruelties, it played out in my mind. Bragging about one child's scholarship, then telling me to be grateful for scraps. Praising a sister for her sacrifice, while actively undermining my desperate pleas for help. Their cruelty wasn't random. It had an architecture, a blueprint. It was never accidental. Mason slept in the crook of my arm, his small chest rising and falling rhythmically. The medicine receipt sat on the nightstand, like a talisman, a testament. I had chosen him. Every penny spent, every refusal of their demands, every quiet phone call I'd made. My mother? She had chosen performance. Those two choices couldn't coexist. Their love had always been conditional, theatrical. Mine was a ledger of small, practical acts, simple acts that kept my boy breathing. When dawn finally streaked across the motel curtain, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt weary, yes, but also fierce. And singular. Singular in a way that had nothing to do with their approval. I thought of the future, the work to do, the bills to juggle, the endless nights in clinic waiting rooms. And I thought of the choice I had already made. I had bought my son his medicine. I had crossed a line in their twisted family ledger that could never be uncrossed. Lying there, holding Mason, something else settled inside me. Quiet. Absolute. They had used their comfort as armor, and my son's life as an inconvenience. I had a receipt. A record. And now a small, stubborn plan. I would not beg for their approval. I would not patch the gaping hole in their moral accounting with my apologies. I closed my eyes, listening to Mason breathe. Outside, traffic hummed, indifferent. Inside, I rehearsed practical things. Calls to make. Places to apply. Funds to raise. I didn't have an epic conclusion yet. What I had was a continuous set of small acts. That would be my life. And for tonight, for the next infusion, for the long, hard road ahead, that would have to be enough. Enough to make sure someone else's comfort was never again more important than my son's survival. I woke up the next morning, my throat still sore, swollen. Every swallow was a brutal reminder of exactly what my mother thought my son's life was worth. I sat in the motel bathroom, the fluorescent lights buzzing over the mirror, and stared at my reflection. It was like looking at a woman I hadn't fully met yet. I wasn't crying. I was calculating. Survival, I learned overnight, requires a total shift in mode. I wasn't going back to their house. I wasn't going to repeat that horrifying scene, trying to explain myself to people who had already decided I wasn't human unless I served their twisted hierarchy. I found a small community care program in the city. They helped single parents dealing with childhood cancer. They didn't ask why I needed help. They didn't ask me to prove my son deserved care. They just asked for receipts and medical forms. I sent them everything. Within 7 days, they approved partial assistance, arranged transport to a partnered clinic, and pointed me toward a work program that paid weekly, not monthly. Exactly what I needed. Week by week, things stabilized. Not perfect, not glamorous, but real. My parents kept calling, of course. Not to apologize. No, never that. To demand. My mother left voicemail after voicemail, rambling about family reputation and how I was sabotaging Dean's momentum. She texted that I was creating division. She even said Mason's illness was pulling emotional resources out of alignment. Every single message was the same. Their universe needed one star, and it certainly wasn't my son. I let their calls ring out, but I wasn't silent. I wasn't passive. I was paying attention. Then one night, Dean called me directly. Bluntly, he said, "Mom needs rent this month. She said you can cover it since you don't have real bills anyway." My blood ran cold. I looked at Mason, asleep in his hospital bed, his tiny hand curled around his stuffed dinosaur. The monitors beside him beeped steadily, quiet proof of what truly mattered. And right then, in that moment, I finally understood. The day they chose to hit me instead of helping me, I became their last, unwitting source of survival. They were so utterly accustomed to me putting out the fires they lit, they'd completely forgotten I could just stop showing up with water. I didn't need to give a speech. I didn't need them to understand. I just needed to prepare to cut off the access they treated like oxygen. I made a silent vow. The next time they came begging for anything, money, shelter, social convenience, connection, I would not give. I would not patch. I would not rescue. And I knew deep down they would come. And when they did, I already knew exactly what I was going to do. They came sooner than I expected. 8 months later, Mason was stable enough for outpatient rotations instead of weekly infusions. I had a steady schedule, working 2 part-time remote admin contracts, and a small savings account was actually growing. Not huge, no, but enough to breathe without panic. I didn't post about it. I didn't brag. I just worked, quietly, consistently, like a woman who no longer needed permission to exist. Their world, though, finally cracked. Dean got dropped by his brand. His contract never finalized. His sponsorship collapsed. My mom texted me, "Emergency. We need $1,900 to cover 2 months or we lose this house." Then my dad called. He didn't yell this time. His voice sounded like a man who'd just discovered gravity, late in life. We can work this out, he muttered, almost begging. Family needs each other, you know that. I stood in my small living room, folding Mason's dinosaur pajamas. He was in the kitchen, humming quietly as he ate his cereal. Nothing cinematic about it. They were just asking for the resource they believed they owned forever. I spoke, my voice calm, steady. You hit my throat because I bought medicine that saved your grandson's life. Silence on his end. Thick. Flat. You told me her comfort came first. I continued. And now, mine comes first. My dad exhaled, a frustrated, animalistic noise. Are you really throwing away family because of one emotional moment? He rasped. You threw away family the moment you traded a child's pain for a runway dress, I said. Then I blocked his number. Permanently. The next day, my mother tried from a different number. We can come stay with you for a while, her message read, as if I were some kind of charity shelter for the monsters who'd built my trauma. I never replied, never sent money, never offered help. I never gave them a single thread back into my life. And when they finally showed up at my workplace lobby, unannounced, desperate, worn down, pretending a softness that was nothing but costume fabric, security escorted them out within minutes. Because I already had their names listed as restricted individuals. Their humiliation was quiet, administrative, unemotional. The only language abusive parents never expect. Mason never saw them again. And I didn't carry guilt. I carried proof. Proof of what survival actually looks like. Months later, he was running around the small backyard of the duplex we rented, laughing, shoes dirty from grass stains. He looked up at me, his eyes wide. Mom, he asked, we're safe now, right? I knelt beside him, my heart aching with a truth I could finally speak. Yes, I said, a single, firm nod. We are safe now. I meant it. I didn't just break the cycle. I slammed the exit door shut behind it. Pause, reflective, slightly hopeful tone. This is my story. It wasn't easy, but it taught me what truly matters. I want to know, have you ever had to cut ties with family to protect yourself or your loved ones? What was your moment of clarity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really eager to hear them.